welcome back to Bramwell Does. So in this video, just bear with me and try and get to the end of this one, because I'm going to show you how to make some bread. There's going to be another video about how to make the butter which is on this bread, but if you bear with me, we'll also show you an easy mistake which can be fixed, but I just went with it and I'm going to show it. So watch the footage, come back and I'll speak to you then. So for this simple, I call it simple bread recipe, you're going to need to weigh out 1,000 grams of flour. Now you can go all white flour, or you can go all wholemeal flour, or you can do a mix of both. So I just get this stuff, get it from Waitrose. It's the Duce organic stuff and it's really good. It makes really nice bread. I'm going to do a ratio of 900 white and 100 of the wholemeal for this bread, for this loaf. Then you're going to need, I use 620 mils of tepid water, and then I use 30 mils of an oil. Now I'm using olive oil. It just put a little bit of fat into that loaf, makes it, a little bit more lighter, and it just brings a little bit of flavour as well. And what I haven't got on here is the yeast. You're going to need, for the 1,000 grams, you're going to need 10 grams of yeast and 15 grams of salt. If you can, use a good salt like a sea salt, but if you've only got a table salt, that will do. So that's your ingredients. Let's crack on. Okay, so we've got the flour in the bowl. Give it a quick mix around, simple enough. Then we've got the 10 grams of dried yeast for this one. So this is a simple, easy loaf. So we've got some dried yeast. Just going to mix that in, get that all in. We've got 15 grams of sea salt. Get that into there, get that mixed in. Then we want to add the liquid. And what I would say, once you add the liquid, try and stick to using one hand from now on, otherwise it starts to get a bit messy. So the trick of it is use one hand to use any mixing. So let's get like I say, this is like a tepid water. That goes in, all in, and then olive oil, all that in. And this is the fun part, or the messy part, depends on how you want to take it really. So really just get your hand in. I've got quite big hands, so it's like a big shovel for me, to be honest. But you just want to get them in there and then start bringing it together. I'll come back again in a minute when it's come together. So now you can see it a little bit further on. So I'm just going to do is keep squashing it together with my hand. Still using one hand. Don't be tempted at any point to add any more flour or water, because it will come together. All them bits of flour there that you see in that bowl looks dry, but that will come together, believe me. Keep going, just keep kneading in the bowl. Don't take out the bowl until it's all come together. Your bowl will become quite clean-ish from the fact it'll pick up all the flour. So just keep going until that bowl has picked up as much of that flour as possible. Don't add any more water at this stage, and definitely don't add any more flour if you feel it's too wet. What they say with bread, when you're making it, the wetter, the better. So I'll carry on. So, like I said, still using one hand. You don't want both your hands looking like that, otherwise it just starts to get a right nightmare and a mess. You can see now, I'm lifting this out. Let me move it away. So I'll show you the bowl. It's coming clean. That's just becoming sticky and it'll start to come together. The more you start to knead it, the less sticky it becomes and the more manageable it comes. So you just got to keep with it. Don't let it beat you, just keep going. And what I'm going to do now, I'll get it out of the bowl and I'll put it onto a surface. I like to use wood for the surface. Just seems to be a lot better. When I'm kneading like this, it helps come together. It sticks to the wood, so there's a bit of tension this part, and I'm pushing it away and then bringing it back. Pushing away, bringing back. So I'll carry on doing that. Honestly, you need to do that for about 10 minutes. So it's a bit of a workout, but the end result is worth it. So I'll come back after I've done 10 minutes of this kneading. The board's moving around there. I should have put a cloth, like a tea towel underneath the board to stop it. So I'll do that in a minute. But yeah, just keep going now, 10 minutes, and I'll show you how it comes together. What I also use at this point, the hand that's stayed out of the sticky mess, use that for the scraper, so that becomes your second hand scraper. And that just brings everything back every time. I'll come back when this is after 10 minutes of kneading to show you what I've got. Okay, so we're about 2 minutes in now. You see the change? So you're starting to build up the gluten in this flour, well, in the dough now. So it's starting to build. You see the board? That's becoming cleaner. Keep slapping it down, up, over. You can really go to town. You could, just start throwing it around, and you just want to keep stretching. That's all you're doing, stretching to get that gluten built up in that bread. So that's about 2 minutes in. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so 10 minutes, thereabouts. You can see now, so I'm still using this as my left hand. And what I'm doing now, I'm cupping like underneath the bread, just tightening it up, tightening the dough up really. Keep spinning it, tighten it. You can see the board, there's not much waste. Bread's there, it's come together. See my hand, this hand, keeping it clean compared to this one. That's by using this as left hand. So what I'm going to do now, this will go into the original bowl I weighed the flour out in, and I'll show you what I do there. Okay, so all I'm going to do, put some olive oil in the bowl. Got my dough tightened up really. As you can see, it's nice. Put that in. Then literally, all I'm doing, spinning it around the bowl. Then I'll get my cover. You can use a tea towel, you can use a bit of cling film, you can put it in a plastic bag. You just want something just to cover it so that the temperature helps that yeast start to eat through the flour, the sugars, and then that will start to basically come together and you'll see it rising. You normally say about twice the size of what you've put it in. Just want it to build up the carbon, is it CO2 to call it inside the bread? Sorry, I got that wrong. So that just builds up and then you'll see. Okay, back in a minute. I've got like I think you call them like, it's for putting over food, but you can also, think about it, you can use like if you buy a shower cap, something like that, you just want something that's going to stay on that bowl. And then you're just getting the right environment inside there for that yeast, and that yeast to start making that CO2, and then watching the dough rise. Like I say, if you can get it to about double the size, then you move on to the next stage. I can't say to you, leave it for an hour, because the temperature of your houses are all different. So you might have to leave it for 2 hours, you might leave it for 45 minutes. I don't know, so I'm not going to say how long. Just you'll see it sort of double in size, and that's when you're ready for the next stage. Right, okay, so this has been about an hour and a half, and you can see there how it's come right up. It's pretty much over the top of that bowl. So now I need to, what they say is knocking it back. So you're knocking the gas out because you want it to do like a second proof, and that second proof is after you shape it, and then I'll show you my proving basket which I'm going to use. So first thing, just knock it back. You see some of the oil coming out of the sides, because if you remember I put the oil in, so I'm just knocking it out just so it'll feed back, and then I'm going to put it onto the board. Get this onto the board, and you can see now there's the dough. So I'm going to split this, because you could do one massive bread, or you could do, I'm just looking for my, there it is, again, my scraper, bread scraper, dough scraper, I think that's the actual right term. All I'm going to do is just roughly cut it in half, and you'll see it just comes away. There we go. So now, got 2 pieces of dough. Just set one aside, work with one. And what I need to do is knock it back and then shape it. And this is my proving basket. Now, I do mainly sourdough bread baking. And you'll see these, a lot of sourdough breads have got this nice shape on from these like wooden proving baskets. I still use them when I use my yeasted, so I'm in dry yeasted loaves as well. But basically I do a lot of sourdough, and I will do a video on sourdough, but I just wanted to keep this one fairly simple for now. But that's the proving basket I'm going to be using. So shaping, honestly, go and have a look at other shaping videos on YouTube or in books. I think everyone sort of does it differently, because what I do, I sort of get mine, bring it into the middle, knock it back, bring it down again. This, see how flimsy it is now? Over the top, pushing it round. And honestly, best advice is go and have a look at everyone and then get your own, you know, the way you do it yourself. Again, I'm just bringing it in, tightening it up, because I want that tension in there, because I want that yeast to start eating again them sugars, creating that CO2, so the bread, well, the dough rises for the second time before it goes into the oven. So this is really ready to go in the proving basket. So now you can see both of my doughs, I've shaped them into circles, going to put them in the proving basket. The method for sourdough is different. I would be bench resting, it's a longer process. So don't think this is the same way. It's going to be different for a sourdough. But you can see the tension's there, pushing back. That's what I want it to do. Quite happy with them. So now into the proving baskets, and I'll show you what to do there. What I do with a proving basket, I dust it. So with flour. So get the flour into basically all them crevices. You could use semolina for this. You could use rice flour. When I'm doing sourdough, I normally use rice flour or I've got a bit of wholemeal here. It's a bit more, well, you can see it. See the bits of, a bit more coarse. So you can see, and it just helps that bread not sticking. And then what I do, you can see here, here's my dough, put some flour on the top, just really put that over the top, again, prevent any sticking. I'll give it another twist, and then I flip it, so it goes upside down, and then all I'm doing here, we call this stitching if you're doing sourdough, and you're just bringing that dough together underneath, stitching anything over, and then wanting it to rise. So I'll do that again, I'll show you again. I've got a proving basket, got wholemeal flour, coarse, just to prevent any sticking. I've got you can see this, I'll just show you this. So I've got this, tension again, just a bit more tension, bit of flour on top, and then get that flour, flip it, you just see, do that stitching. Hopefully you can see that I'm doing that stitching. Okay, and now I put a cover, just put like a tea towel over these, and I might actually just put a little bit more flour around just to stop any sticking. There shouldn't be any sticking. It's not I will talk in the sourdough ones about hydration rates with flour and breads, but this is just this worked out 65% hydration, but I'll go in more detail when I do the sourdough breads. This, like I keep saying, I'll try and keep it simple so you can do this at home. If you haven't got one of these, which if you're doing it for the first time you're not going to have one, you could go back to your glass bowl and you could put a tea towel inside, put flour in a tea towel, and then let it prove again in that, and that is just mimicking what I've got here. So that is another way of doing it at home. So yeah, I'm going to Cover these now with a tea towel. Let them rest for about half an hour, 45 minutes. Come back to them and it'll be time for me to bake. Okay, so whilst the bread is doing its second proof now, sort of prepare what you're going to cook it in. So obviously in the oven, I'd say about 15 minutes before you think you're going to hit the right proving on this, get your oven on full whack on the highest it will go. Two ways. Basically this is how I do my sourdough. I do it in what these are basically called Dutch ovens. So it's a lidded, you might have a stock pot, I think they call them, like an enamel one. It's basically a big pan and it's got a lid, but the actual lid for this is the bottom. I'll show you that, what I'm trying to say. If you haven't got one of them, you can just use a baking tray. So I've got a baking tray here, put some grease-proof, I keep saying grease-proof, it's grease-proof paper, and then we just put the bread on there and bake it direct. The other thing that we will need, what I do, you don't need it, is a little bit of water, but I'll show you that when it comes to it. So yeah, that's just really prepping whilst we're waiting for it to prove. Okay, so what I am going to show you here is it's a blade for a razor. Now I use this, but I'm not recommending anyone else use this. Maybe use a bread knife or something like that. I just use this because I got used to using it over the time doing the baking. So I'll come back to that in a minute. So you can see there, that bread, that dough has risen. I'm going to put it onto the greaseproof paper. Then the greaseproof, can't get over saying greaseproof paper with the dough, the bread on, is going to go into this, sitting there. Then this is preheated, so it's hot. Then this, obviously the lid or the base is going to go on top. I'll show you that. And then you've got H2O, the water. I'll show you what I'm going to do with that as well. So straight away, first thing you're going to do is get this over. Try now, I can actually do that way, over the top. You see it? This is where the blade comes in, because you want to try and put some cuts in it so it can expand. So I'll just go, maybe do like a square. So I'll go down, down, across, and across. And this goes into here. Be careful if you've got one of these, you've preheated it. A bit of water now. So the water, let's get the right spray on. So it sprays and doesn't. There you go, some water into here as well. This is just creating a bit of steam, like they would in a professional bakery. They'd have steam. Put this lid on. Over the top. This is sometimes where I always get this wrong because I've got big hands and get a bit clumsy, but hopefully that goes well. That's gone perfectly fine. So the bread's in there. Bang this in the oven now. 30 minutes, highest heat. Then, after 30 minutes, take the lid off, and then 10 minutes without the lid on, and I'll come back to you. Right, the first loaf is done. You can see at the 30-minute mark, I took the lid off, and now it's been in there 45 minutes. I'm going to pull it out of the oven, get it on there. Got to be cooled down now. So there you go. You can see that's the loaf. Once it's cooled down, I'll cut into it, and you can see it. Okay, now I need to get the other one in on the baking tray, so let's go and do that. Okay, so you can see this one's slightly gone over, so I might lose a little bit of this energy it's got here, but I'll put it onto the tray anyway, see what happens, see if it just nicely comes out. Let's get the blade, let's put the cuts in. Yeah, might have lost a bit of energy, might have let that overprove while the other one was in the oven, but let's get a few gashes in there. Spray it, and hopefully we'll get a bit of a rise when I put it back in the oven. Okay, so let's get the one that was on the baking tray, see if it did get any more energy to basically rise. Well, it didn't really, to be honest. It lost that energy in the overproving, but it's a mistake. One of them, the other loaf, obviously has got a lot more height than that one. That one's still a loaf, but not impressed with that one. The other one, much better. Okay, so what you can see here is the loaf on the left overproofed, and because of that, it never got the energy to rise. It's good it's happened, because it can show you that mistakes can happen. You can fix that. I could have basically knocked it back, reshaped it, and then let it proof again. But I just thought, bang it in the oven, because it's good to show you what things can go wrong. This one, not wrong with this one. Loaf, shaped, height, everything, no problem. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut into it and let you see it. Right, so the bread, got a half decent bread knife that I use. Let's just cut into it and see. There you go. There's the loaf. I cannot see anything wrong with that. If it was a sourdough, you'd have a more open crumb, which you'll see coming in the future on the channel. But that, no problem at all. Looks fine. Bit crunchy. No problems at all with that. Right, I'm going to put a little bit of butter on that and give it a taste test. Okay, so we got some homemade butter. That's a separate video. But yeah, let's get it on the bread. And this butter is really easy to make as well. This is unsalted. And you'll see in the video anyway, there's no point me banging on about that. So there's the homemade butter on the homemade bread and butter. Let me do a taste test, see what it tastes like. It's lovely. You have to excuse me. That is really nice. The bread's absolutely, it's soft. The texture's superb, and that butter is also superb. So, I know it's been a long video, but hopefully, if you follow that, you'll make some nice bread. Also, you'll see if you overprove it, you're going to get the bread that's not quite to a good standard. Still edible, but not as good as this one. But you can fix that. I just thought I'm going to go with the flow and leave it as it was. I'll leave it there and I'll go back to me on the video. So I hope you enjoyed that. The bread, honestly, is fantastic. Tastes superb. Dead easy to make. This one, still edible. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the actual look, and maybe a little bit denser because it overproved, so it didn't get the energy to rise in the oven. Like I say, I could have fixed it, but I wanted to show a mistake. I made a mistake. I could have fixed it, but I wanted to show you, if you made that mistake, just go with the flow. It's still a loaf of bread. But this one obviously turned out well because the proving time on that one was perfect. That was still proving while that was baking. I should have put that in the fridge, and that would have slowed that proving down. But I didn't think about that at the time. I just left it on the side and it overproved, and we have this bread. Still edible though. So, thank you for watching. There will be sourdough breads coming on the channel. There's going to be sesame seed buns. There's going to be a air fryer bread, so baking a loaf in an air fryer. So that's all to come, but I just wanted to get the first one done, an easy one. I will do more complicated breads with fruits and all sorts. That will come on the channel, but for the first one, just wanted to try and keep it simple. Any questions, put them below. Thank you very much. Cheers, and I'll see you on the next one.